You know, when we talk about student debt, we usually think of four-year universities, right? But there's this other kind of hidden debt crisis bubbling up in vocational schools. These are the places that are supposed to give you a hands-on career fast, but instead, a lot of students are walking out with skills, sure, but also with this huge financial weight that holds them back right from the start. So it makes you wonder, what if there's a totally different way to do this? Today, we're going to dig into a model that completely rejects federal aid, and, well, it might just be the blueprint for a debt-free career.
Okay, let's just jump right into the numbers, because honestly, they tell a pretty shocking story. For a lot of folks graduating from vocational schools, the median student debt is about $11,000. And their starting salary, get this, just $16,000. I mean, think about that for a second. Your debt is almost 70% of what you'll make in your entire first year. You're not even getting a running start at your career. You're starting at the bottom of a really deep financial hole.
So you gotta ask, how did we even get to this point? Well, in this first part, we're gonna untangle this really weird paradox that's right at the heart of the whole system. We're talking about how the financial aid that's supposed to help students can actually turn into a trap, one that locks them into debt before they've even cashed a single paycheck. All right, so the whole system is basically built on something called Title IV federal student aid. Just think of it as the main government pipeline for money, Pell Grants, federal loans, all that stuff that helps people pay for school after high school. And here's the thing, most vocational schools, they're totally dependent on this money just to keep the lights on.
But, and this is a big but, there's a huge potential flaw in this system. It's something economists call the Bennett hypothesis. And the idea is actually pretty simple. When schools know there's a bunch of federal aid money available, what do? They raise their tuition to grab as much of that cash as they can. So the end result is kind of crazy. The money that was supposed to make school more affordable actually makes the price tag go up for everyone.
Okay, so this brings up a really interesting thought experiment. What if you just took all that federal money out of the picture completely? What would a school even look like if it couldn't fall back on that government money pipeline?
Right? If the system we have is part of the problem, then we've got to find a totally different answer. So, what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative is built around this idea called tuition discipline. And it's pretty straightforward, really. If a school doesn't have any federal money to rely on, it has to survive on one thing and one thing only. Being so good and so affordable, the students are actually willing to pay for it out of their own pocket. Suddenly, the power shifts away from the government and goes directly to the students. They become the ones who decide what's a quality education and what isn't.
And hey, this isn't just some theory on a whiteboard. Let's look at a real-world example of how this works. We're going to dive into the Louisville Beauty Academy in Kentucky. For more than 10 years, this school has been absolutely thriving, and they've done it all without taking a single penny of federal aid.
Okay, and this is where you really see the proof. Just look at these numbers. For the exact same state cosmetology license, a typical school that takes federal aid will charge you somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. At the Louisville Beauty Academy, it's about $6,000. I mean, that difference is just staggering, and you see it for every single program they offer. I mean, we are literally talking about tuition that is 50 to 75% cheaper than the competition. For a student who's just trying to get a new career off the ground, saving that kind of money isn't just a nice little bonus. It's a total game changer. It completely rewrites their financial future right from the very beginning.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth is that even possible? Well, by saying no thanks to the federal aid system, they get to slash all these massive administrative costs. They don't need a special team to handle Title IV compliance, they don't have to file all those complicated federal reports, and they don't have to pay for expensive accreditation. Their focus becomes laser sharp on just one thing, training their students to pass the state license exams as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's it.
And this super lean, super efficient model creates what the school's founders like to call a double scoop advantage for their students. It's a pretty cool name for a two-part benefit that gives them this incredible head start financially. Okay, so here's how it works. Scoop number one is the savings right up front. Students save $10,000, maybe $12,000. That just stays in their pocket. Then, scoop number two is all about time. Because the training is so streamlined, graduates get into the workforce 3 to 6 months sooner than everyone else. That means they're earning an extra $8,000 to $10,000 in that first year that their peers just aren't. And here's where it all comes together. You add the money they saved to the extra money they earned, and a graduate from this school has about a $20,000 head start over their peers, and that's just in their first year. They're not starting their careers paying off debt, they're starting their careers actually building wealth. But the story gets even bigger than just one student's success.
The real power of this model, the really incredible part, is when you zoom out and see the massive ripple effect these debt-free graduates have on the entire local economy.
Okay, get this. Since it first opened its doors, this one school has graduated almost 2,000 licensed professionals. Think about that. That's a huge wave of new skilled workers and potential small business owners flooding into the local community.
And on average, these grads are making around $40,000 a year. Now, just multiply that by 2,000 people. You're talking about a massive amount of new income getting pumped directly into the local economy every single year.
So here's the bottom line. When economists actually run the numbers on the total impact, it's just mind-blowing. The total economic contribution from these graduates to the state of Kentucky is estimated to be somewhere between $20 and $50 million annually. And remember, that's from one single school.
And that money comes from all over the place. Because these graduates aren't buried in debt, they're way more likely to go out and start their own businesses, renting a booth, opening a salon. They're paying for storefronts, they're paying income taxes and sales taxes, and they just have the freedom to invest and take the kinds of risks that grow an economy.
So, this incredible success story isn't really just about one beauty school in Kentucky, right? It holds some really powerful lessons for how we could totally rethink workforce training and education across the entire country.
When you put these two models next to each other, the contrast is just crystal clear. On one side, you've got the system that depends on subsidies, which often leads to high costs and a ton of red tape. And on the other side, you have this self-sustaining model that's all about low costs, efficiency, and getting people to work fast.
And this all leads to a really profound idea. We're all taught to think that accreditation from the government is the ultimate stamp of quality, right? But this quote makes you wonder, what if a school just being able to survive for over a decade in a competitive market, what if that's a better sign that it's actually high quality and relevant? Because it's proven its worth to the people who matter most, the students paying the bills.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. In this whole search for quality education, could it be that we've just been looking in all the wrong places? Maybe the real gold standard isn't some piece of paper from a government agency, but the simple, undeniable proof that you're good enough for the market to keep you in business.